so much for the film. That was so wonderful.
Amazing.
So I just quickly wanted to just ask about like your connection to Pat Fields and how this documentary came about.
Well, first of all, thank you all for coming. Can you guys hear me okay?
Yes, we can.
So I'm Michael Seldich. I directed and produced the film. I met Pat before COVID. I was doing a documentary series for CNN called American Style. And it chronicled style in America from the 40s to present day. And I interviewed a lot of people, maybe 56 people that were involved with fashion. Pat was one of them. And I fell in love with her immediately. And I remember when she left the interview, I turned to the crew and I said, somebody needs to make a documentary on this woman. So that planted the seed in my head. I asked her about it in December of 19. And I was so excited because I thought she would be all excited. And she turned me down. She said, no, I've had a lot of people ask me, I don't like to be put on a pedestal. She really didn't want to do it. And then of course we know what happened just a couple months later. COVID started, everything shut down. But I kept thinking about it. And in the summer of 21, I reached out and approached her again and asked her if there's any way I could, convince her to do this. And she said, come and see me. And so I went to New York and spent like 3 days there trying to twist her arm. And I think the thing that really turned her around was, I said to her, Pat, you're a public figure and, technically anybody can make a documentary on you. I can interview a bunch of people, throw a bunch of archival footage in, but that's not really the documentary I want to make. I want to follow you around. I want to see you work. I want to get inside your head. I want to see you with actors in a fitting and see you shopping and really understand your process. And I said, if you don't do it now, like, when would you ever do that? And she said, all right, let's do it. I think it helped that she also saw American Style, the thing that I made that she was in, and she liked that also. But I think that was really what convinced her to do it.
That's amazing. You can really see the way that the documentary gets in her head and really sees what she's thinking. I think she has such a unique way of articulating her own sense of style, her own philosophy. I wouldn't say that she struggles to name it, but that she has a completely out of this world way of articulating those kind of things. And I wanted to know if you had any lessons about fashion and the world that you really took from Pat during this process.
Well, I definitely think here I am sitting in a black t-shirt, but I definitely take more chances, I think, these days when it comes to fashion. I think about mixing things in ways that I hadn't thought about before. Mixing patterns is something that she did probably earlier than a lot of people and kind of put that on the map, that idea. And the idea of mixing high and low, very expensive items with very inexpensive items. She was doing that a lot in Sex and the City. And so I loved when she said in the beginning of the film, when she explained how that works with mixing patterns, she said it's about the color. If the colors work together, it doesn't matter what the pattern is. And I thought about that and I'm like, that kind of makes sense, like it works. So yeah, sometimes I try these things that I've learned from Pat, but her sense of style is completely intuitive, right? It's totally from her gut. And she knows what she likes, and she never is waffling, and if you don't like it, she's like fine with it. There's those aspects of her are really fun and really unique, I think, of how she works.
Thank you. Right before we throw it to the audience for questions, I wanted to ask about the archival process. use like a lot of footage from like across decades. What was it like sourcing that footage?
Well, we had an archival producer who I'd worked with before who gathered a lot of stuff. You know, I told him things that I was looking for. I wanted a lot of stuff about her shop, but he found a lot more than I, expected. I think he gathered about 300 hours of archival footage, and I watched all of it. We shot about 100 hours of our own footage, and I watched all of it. So, when you think about that, it's a real challenge to put something together and really pick what you think makes sense and what tells the story you're trying to tell. But the archival footage was really fun. I mean, two things in particular that I got very excited about was that 1984 interview that you saw in the middle, and then you saw at the very end when her voice, she doesn't have the cigarette voice. She has this very little baby doll voice. And it's incredible because she's 42 years old in 1984 and has already been in business for 20 years and has never done TV or film. So she was in the press simply because her store was such a huge success. But that interview was really great. And the other time I remember getting really excited was when we found that footage of RuPaul really young, he was like 20 years old or something like that. That was really fun. But yeah, there's so much archival footage that I, couldn't use because, the film's only an hour and 40 minutes long, so.
Absolutely. I didn't even recognize Pat the first time. She spoke with that very high voice
and that was the idea. That's why we don't show her face for a really long time on that, because I wanted you to be thinking, who is that talking? That's not Pat. I wanted to throw you off and then be surprised when you saw her.
Mm-hmm.
That's wonderful. Okay, we're gonna throw it to the audience. Do we have any questions ready to go?
There's one right there.
Okay, perfect. I'll be repeating the questions back so that everyone can hear.
What's your personal collection like at her house?
Oh, wonderful. So there was a question here about what Pat's personal collection at her house and what that's like.
Her collection of clothes or just her house in general?
Her
collection of clothing.
Her whole collection of clothing.
Well, Pat's apartment is really interesting. You see it in the film. You see them in the kitchen and you see her interview. And her entire apartment is mirrored. There's not a single piece of drywall or a door exposed. It's all mirror everywhere, the entire apartment, including the bathrooms. So her bedroom, I've never really seen her closet, and I'm not even sure how big it is because her bedroom is all panels of mirror, and I think a lot of them open up to closet. But, I don't think she's a real hoarder. I don't think she's a collector. Sarah Jessica Parker has a warehouse with every single thing she wore in Sex and the City and just like that, that she has kept and stored, and it's all cataloged. Pat's not that precious about things, so she has a lot of stuff that she loves to wear, but honestly, I doubt her closet is even that large.
Yeah, she says that she moves on.
Thank you. I think we have time for one more question. Do we have anything in the balcony?
No balcony.
Or maybe down here? Yeah, we can have you right here.
Besides the whole COVID situation, what was the most challenging aspect of doing the documentary?
So we had a question about, besides COVID, what was the most challenging thing about making the documentary?
That's a good question. COVID definitely was challenging. We shot it in February of 22, we started shooting, and we shot for about 10 months. I'd say, when you're making a documentary, you have to be very specific and focused about what you shoot. When I say we shot 10 months, it's not like we were following her 24/7. No one could afford to do that and hire a crew to do that. You have to be really focused and pick the things that you think are going to be interesting for it. And so I think it was, I mean, maybe one of the challenges was, you know, working around like Lionsgate was not that easy to work with, partly because of COVID. You know, I wanted to shoot more on the set of both of the TV shows, of Sex and the City and I mean of Emily in Paris and of Run the World, but you know, again, COVID kind of kept us from doing as much of it as we wanted to. You know, I don't know if there was any particular challenge on this project that's any different from any other challenging, you know, any other documentary that I've had and the challenges that you have of making a documentary. I love Pat. She's really great. She's exactly what you see on the screen. So, you know, she never was shy about saying, you know, that's it, we're done today, get out, or whatever, whatever, you know, she was feeling that day. But she was really a good sport and really let us into her life. You know, it's hard to have people following you around with a camera. I don't know if anybody can imagine what that's like, but it's very invasive. So she was really great and a good sport, and I'm really happy that she loves the film. In fact, I'll tell you a really short story that is a real testament to Pat, and it was probably the biggest gift that she could have given me or any filmmaker. When it was finished, I didn't show her anything until it was finished. And when it was finished, I got a small group of her friends together and we watched the film together. There were about 10 people. They were all in the film, like Erica and those people. And because I thought if she hates it, they'll probably all love it and they'll convince her, you know, like to calm down. But she watched it, and I was kind of watching her out of the side of my, you know, eye, and she was laughing at parts. And, you know, when it was done, she said, does anybody really want to watch me for that long? It's too long. You know, she's so humble. But the point I was getting at is I said to her, Pat, is there anything in this that makes you uncomfortable that you want me to change or take out? Because, you know, like the line about Victoria Beckham or things like that, I wasn't sure how she was going to feel about having that in the documentary. And she said to me, this is your piece of art. You do what you want with it. I'm not gonna tell you what to do. And that like really surprised me and touched me. I've never had a subject who didn't want to get their hands dirty and get involved in how you portrayed them on screen. So, you know, it just shows that that's who Pat is. She loves to put people around her that are artists, and she loves for people to express themselves. And, you know, she's just very easygoing in that way.
That's so wonderful to hear. I completely love to hear that Pat continues to be such a great collaborator, and I think that this film really registers that. So thank you again for your film and for joining us for this Q&A.
Well, thank you for having me, and thank you all who are here in the audience. And if you like the film, tell your friends. It's streaming now, I think, in your country on Apple and Amazon. I think. I'm not 100% sure, but I think it is in Canada.
We can double check that.
Anyway, thank you all.
Thank you all for coming, and remember, Devil Wears Prada is showing after this if you would like to stay to see Pat's work.
Do you mind being on my video just saying at the end of this, saying what you think of the film? Just saying what you think of it. What do you think of it?
Are you posting this?
On my YouTube, yes. Oh, no. No, you don't want to? That's okay. I thought you'd have like a reaction. No?
I do. I loved it.
You loved it?
I loved it.
Okay.
I loved it.
You loved it. Good.
You know what? She's just. I just think being so talented and being so authentic to yourself and so humble that it was very inspiring.
Okay. Are you okay if I post this part
Sure.
of it? Yeah.
Okay.
Great. Thank you. That's all I wanted. Just a reaction.
I loved it.
Thank you. Yeah, no, it was, blew my mind. You know, I come to these documentaries and I want to see them because, you know, I have a lived reference point to it because I remember I went to Pat Field's store in New York back in the God, is it 80s or 90s now? Anyway, I went to a version of her store, and I remember just the experience of being in there and just being connected to that scene. I remember actually, I think that was the same time I went to New York, and I went to a club, and RuPaul was there. This is before RuPaul was RuPaul. And RuPaul was at the club, like being not as RuPaul is now, but like actually when you see them when you watch the film and you see RuPaul, that's kind of the look. Except I remember he was in a bigger blonde wig, because he did the blonde wig way back when. And yeah, and it was just a scene of scenesters and club people in the space. And I was in my early 20s, experiencing that whole scene. And of course paid attention, read paper magazine details, whatever was around, just kind of to vibe on the experience, and we're very much connected to it all. And so Pat Field was one of those names, always a buzz around, right? But this was incredible. It's incredible the way they captured the essence of that time. I was here just going, oh my God, yes, yes, yes. It was such a vibrant film. It was so alive with the time. I think he did such a great job of capturing the energy of that time and the different personalities. I mean, everybody was in this thing, right? Even when they did the little film, I saw Tukey Smith in one scene, and just the reflection of all these different people, right? But that Run the World crew, I know I want to go see. I don't even think I remember. I knew that there was a Run the World series. I need to go see it now. As she said, it's a black girl series of like a version of Sex and the City for the current generation. So I want to go see that, because that scene of the dressing the cast and that one particular character, phenomenal. I think to me, if you take that as a capsule of her approach to styling. And the other thing I love seeing is how, as the in the Q&A, the host just said, that she's a collaborator. She's still a collaborator. And that's what you get. You get, oh, she doesn't just go in and say, here's what I want and do it this way. She works with people. She works with the person who she's dressing. And she really seems able to go, hey, yeah, it's you. Do you like this? And what do you want? Does it make sense for you? And so that's brilliant. That's brilliant to see. And it's like a life lesson about how you can work in collaboration with people. So it's not about you, it's about how does it make sense for it to work overall for the goal of the work you're doing, or the message of the job, or, I guess in these movies and TV shows, the scene or the story that's being told. Like, she really hands herself over to that. And she hands herself over to the people who are the cast members, or the people who are the other, costume designers. And then I guess with the director, even though she sounds like she pushes back against the directors and the other folks who, listen, we know this business. We're working with the character, the actor in the character, playing the character, and my other colleagues, and we'll let you know. And, sometimes convince you, but also not convince you until you see the final result and go, we were right. Anyway, brilliant. Recommend it highly. See it if you get a chance. I guess it's great to see it on a big screen, but streaming service. It's called Happy Clothes, the story of Pat Field. Yeah, anyway, can't say enough. I'm actually sitting here like, wow, it was a treat. It was like that lovely, like you're eating a wonderful meal that you don't want to end. It was kind of, I was like, oh my God, this could, how are they going to, how is he going to end this? And even when he ended, you're like, oh, as he said, there's all this footage, because it was so rich. And those footage from back in the day, I was like back in my, youth. Anyway, I'll stop there. Ciao. And also, what I sat with watching this film is my mother. Since my mother passed a few weeks ago, we've not had, my family and everything, how we've not had at least some of us, because some of my family, they are feeling it. But I would just speak for myself that I haven't had the big rush of the devastation I thought I would feel at the loss of my mom, and maybe it's because we're still waiting to have the funeral. But there are moments when something hits you, and this was a moment in this film. Maybe that's why I came to see this film, because my mother was, an aesthetics girl. I don't want to say fashionista or clothing. She was an aesthetics girl, and as I watched this film, I thought, my mother's like a Pat Field. But not like a costume designer or a stylist or any of that, or clothing dresser or anything. She was, just the way she lived. And I don't know that I mean, we'd say, oh, you know, my mom's got style and we know we get things from her and she sews, so she was a seamstress but really she was an artist. Well, at some point I got to appreciate that my mother was an artist. You've probably seen the video I did with my cousin walking me through how my mother made clothes, and I suddenly realized, oh my God, we took for granted. And I thought, oh, my mother's in a room sewing. But my mother was clearly an artisan, making these, you know, when you stripped her, my cousin opened this dress and showed me the inside and the detailed, delicate work my mother did, intricate work my mother did to make sure that literally, because my mother's mantra was that you should be able to wear anything that she made inside out and it would still look like it's right. It's not like it's on the wrong side. And so just the incredible skill and ability that she had in doing that. And so I'm watching this and watching Pat Field walk through and thinking, those are my mother's, that's my mother's aesthetic or raison d'etre or whatever for how she presented herself into the world. And a certain kind of like clarity, intentionality. And I have this image of my mother one day when my sister was not well and my mother was staying on her own in the house. And I would say to her, Mom, I will stay with you. And she's like, no, no, no. And then I realized I appreciate that she wanted some time with her by herself because ever since she left she's never lived alone. She left her parents' home to live with her, my dad, because she was pregnant with me. And then she eventually went on to my stepdad. And then, of course, she always, and then my sister, Jacqueline, lived with her all her life until much older. So at that point, when my sister went into care, was when my mom suddenly had some space to be on her own. Of course, I was anxious for her. And she was like, no, 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 go, you know, you think I can't be by myself? And then I realized, oh, no, she wants to be by herself, just to have some space. But I remember an image of leaving and turning back, and she's standing in the doorway. And as my good friend Courtney McFarlane says, he's the one who quoted many years ago, your mother is the print queen. And I suddenly realized my mother rarely wears plain fabric, close fabric. I mean, she does, but very rarely. She mostly wears patterns and prints and things like Pat says about what goes together. So my mother has this, sort of like circular, almost like a polka dotty print at the bottom. And then she has this sort of stripy print at the top. And she's standing there, her hair is natural because one of the things that my mother did at the sort of last years of her life was she went natural, you know, no wig, no processing, and she had hair, she had lots of hair. So she would wear it out, you know, sometimes wildly, and then sometimes as a nice neat afro or braids. Her favorite thing when she was getting care from home care was to have them braid her hair, if nothing else. And so, you know, beautiful sort of African cornrowed hair. And there she was standing, and I have a photo of it, of her just in the doorway, waving at me. Again, beautifully turned out, just an average day. And that was always my mother. So I was watching this with such evocation of my mom. And so, yeah, you know, it's something. How these are the kinds of, people have said to me, you know, your grief will look different. And sometimes it will come to you in moments. And this was one of those moments when I had a little cry just watching this documentary and remembering her. And, you know, I guess this is the ways I'll see her. She'll show up in all kinds of places like this. Because this was certainly one of her things was she was a aesthetics girl. I won't just simplify it to fashion or to clothing or style, but just she was an aesthetics girl. And it was important to her how she shows up in the world. So, yeah, wow, okay. Happy close.